Humans are storytellers, and as technology advances, more and more mediums are appearing to grant us unique options in how we want our visions to come to life. But with so many options out there, it's important for a writer to consider what medium best suits the story they are trying to tell. Authors and playwrights seem to have it figured out. It's rare for me to read a book or see a play and think that should have been something else. Movies and TV are much younger by comparison, but they're slowly grinding out their storytelling groove. Video games, on the other hand, are a lot more complicated. Their relationship to storytelling is so weird simply because video games don't have to tell a story to be good. Enter the Gungeon's entire story is you have to kill the past, so go shoot a bunch of stuff so you can get a bullet to put in a gun so you can kill the past. And that's it. And I'm still going to play it because it's Enter the goddamn Gungeon. Noida's entire story is blow people up without dying. Surgeon Simulators is go do bonked-ass surgery on a guy named Nigel. OpenTTD's story is build railroads. And even though all these games have little to no storytelling, I've still played the hell out of them. And it leaves me wondering, what exactly is storytelling's place in games? Now, to actually dive into that is a whole other video in itself, but the long and short of it is that most large budget video games do have stories, but they largely serve to contextualize gameplay and move the player from one set piece to the next. That's not to say they're bad stories. They can be some of the greatest stories ever told, rivaling cinema at their own game, but even then there's nothing about them that makes me say, yep, this could have only been in a video game. Just like in early cinema, it feels like major studios are just pulling and adapting from established mediums, while independent developers are really trying to experiment with what kinds of unique stories their medium can tell. There are several games that come to mind that pushed the envelope and crafted an experience which the world had never seen. But among all of those masterpieces, Outer Wilds has always been my favorite. Outer Wilds is a game which puts you in the center of a solar system-wide archaeological mystery which only you can solve. In a time unknown, the spacefaring Nomai left massive structures across the system before being mysteriously wiped out. A number of Harthians, the system's only surviving sentient species, formed a society which sought to investigate and understand the Nomai. Your character is the final piece in that puzzle, possessing a hardy ship, extensive support, and most importantly, the key to translating the language of the Nomai. Now, if that was enough to sell you, I recommend clicking off the video right now and playing the game. A game like this is best experienced blind, and while I'm not going to spoil too much, I'm going to go through the first moments of the game just to contextualize the story and accommodate those who might need a little more convincing. The stuff I'm showing tends to show up in most recent promotional material, so even if you're going to play the game, it definitely won't ruin it for you, just be careful. Alright, speedrun time. You wake up from a pre-flight nap under the stars, roast and eat a marshmallow the correct way, and talk to Slate, who everyone seems to kind of hate, but he also makes the rockets fly, so pretty typical engineer. He tells you to get the launch code, so you head up towards the crater and meet Mika, who questions your flying skills. He doesn't know how many hours you have on Kerbal Space Program, so you show him how it's done by crashing his model ship several times and sending it into the void for good luck. He thinks the fuel tank exploding is really awesome, which gives this game one realistic kid point. You head down and meet Porphy, who calls you a lightweight, Marl, who really wants to cut down a tree, Rudel is old, and Nice, who is cool. You head up towards the waterfall and find Teffer and Galena, who have no regard for delicate equipment and just want to play the worst game of hide-and-seek ever because they're broadcasting their exact position over radio, which your signal scope can detect, but also, come on. They are so cute. Anyways, Spinel tells you about a sea monster, you listen to Planets of the Moraine, and then you meet Arcos, who is throwing rocks at ghost matter, which is a completely invisible and very dangerous substance which, I cannot stress this enough, burns you to a crisp if you are even near it, and even though you can tell him someone lost his foot doing what he is doing, it only makes him like it more. So, for the folks at home, that is 4 realistic kid points for the Outer Wilds. Moving on now, you go visit Gaussen, who's your flight instructor and local cool uncle, and he tells you to go fix some mining equipment in the cave. So you go do that, and you meet Tuff, who you can make vomit by describing zero gravity. He promptly calls you the worst, you agree, and then you take the lift back up and head to the observatory. You meet your best friend Hal there, he tells you fur is weird, you head into the museum, defy gravity, get creeped out by quantum mechanics, read some Nomai writing, look at a fish, and then go see Hornfels, who gives you the launch codes. You tell him you're ready to die in space, he's understandably confused, and you head off to seek your adventure, but... So that was weird. Hal is waiting outside and says you're hallucinating, but maybe go talk to some guy about it. You head onward and get ambushed by Tephra, who asks you unprompted if you're going to space and never coming back, and do I even need to say it at this point? You brush her off, talk to Slate, head up to the launch platform, and head out into the system. So this is where the game properly begins, and even though you're given a few general pokes in certain directions, you can really do whatever you want. You could go hang around Timber Hearth, you could go to the moon, you could almost crash 30,000 times on Prahlow like I did. You can even just fly into the sun. Outer Wilds revels in the freedom it grants its players to choose their own pace and place of exploration. But no matter what you do, the outcome is the same. You die, along with everyone you met, every place you went, and everything you desired, feared, and loved. And then you wake up and do it all again. And that's where the game really starts. After your first loop, you're left with so many questions. Who were the Nomai? What were they like? Why were they here? What did they want? Why are they gone? Why is the sun exploding, and what do I have to do with it? All of these questions will be floating around in your head constantly as you explore the system, and you will have to try to create answers for them with the new evidence you uncover every loop. And since no player will discover and interpret that evidence in the same way, they will likely hold very disparate answers that will morph and change as more of it is uncovered. And based on those interpretations, and even how they think about themselves and their relationship to our actual universe, the summation of the evidence may feel like a foregone conclusion or a magnificent culmination, a sobering letdown or an inspiring triumph. Even though Outer Wilds has a single story, it's filtered through the paradigm of the player to such a degree that you have to imprint yourself upon it and make it your own in some capacity. And that is the unique capability of video game storytelling that Outer Wilds certainly did not invent, but it blasts to the foreground and makes it the game's key experience. This is a bit of a double-edged blade though. I personally see the game as a beautiful narrative puzzle whose only solution is to get out and explore whatever and whenever you can, but I also imagine some people look at this game and go, that's it? You just fly around in a spaceship, walk around and read? And look, I get it. I personally hate flying around in spaceships and reading and if you're more interested in the narrative side of the game, your ship comes equipped with an excellent autopilot system which you can take from location to location with minimal input on your end.
Apology accepted.
But even if you don't typically like narrative games, there's something so personal about the Outer Wilds story that I feel like it just has to suck you in. You learn so much about the Nomai themselves, what they wanted and what they valued, what made them laugh and what made them cry, who they loved and what they feared. You'll learn to navigate their cities and operate their technology, and in time you may feel as if you know and understand them, even though they only exist as fragments of writing and bleached, cracked bones. I'd like to end this little foray on the note of quantum poetry. Now, if you've never heard of quantum poetry, it's because I'm pretty sure that the Outer Wilds actually invented the art form, or at least coined the name. If you happen to be really well versed in this subject and know if there's another name for this, because I can believe that this has been done before, then let me know. But regardless of all of that, it's just really cool. So on Timber Hearth, you might stumble upon a picturesque and isolated grove of trees, and in there is a signpost which contains the poem, "The quiet shade, it's always dark. Across old bark, in the ancient glade. Now, if you're familiar with poetic form and rhyming schemes, or maybe just good with patterns, you might see that this poem actually works no matter how the lines are arranged, hence the name quantum poetry. For example, it's always dark in the ancient glade, across old bark, the quiet shade. Or, across old bark, it's always dark, the quiet shade in the ancient glade. Or even, the quiet shade, across old bark, in the ancient glade, it's always dark. I bring this up because Outer Wilds in its entirety is really one large quantum poem. All of its lines are out there, spread out amongst the planets and ruins for the player to stumble upon and fit into an ever-growing stanza, while eventually leading to the same final lines. But somehow each arrangement feels equally as intentional and masterful as any other. And like any masterpiece of poetry, Outer Wilds is full of beautiful imagery to complement its subtext. And these are some of the sights.